Just waiting a few minutes here for people to dive in, and then we'll kick things off. Hey everyone, how's it going? Okay, so there's a little bit of a lag from the Discord, and just bear with me with some of the just presentation aspects for those in our Discord. Otherwise, thanks everyone else for hopping on here and joining the pilot program kickoff event. So what we're going to do is just walk through some of the basics of the program, and from there we'll do a roundtable of all of the different teams that are participating, let everyone have a chance to talk a bit just about who they are, what the project is, and then we'll go from there and kick off things with our actual program chairs who will be presenting about the protocol in particular. So from here, let's just kick things off. Let me pull up my screen real quick. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. As far as the launch event goes, so again, thanks everyone for hopping on here today. Basically, there are a couple of things we'll be doing. So first, we'll start off with, again, just some intros about the program, who's involved from the Tableland side of things, and then dive into some presentations from the different chairs that will be supporting the program currently. So kicking things off, I'm Dan. I am sort of the technical main point of contact or lead for the program. I think we've all had a chance to speak, so excited to really see what everyone's building, at least like through all the conversations that we had, and then also obviously super excited for actually seeing what you build over this 8-week period. So again, the program, as you all know, is 8 weeks long. We'll have a couple of checkpoints throughout the process. First deliverable is coming up next week on Thursday, so there are some details that we're presenting there and will be available within each and every team's Notion. On that note, we have a Notion structure set up for really everything. I'll be releasing that today, so you'll have information about really where to get started, anything from docs, the general structure for just like updates and whatnot, the past deliverables that other teams have put together. And with this, there will be some walkthroughs that I'll put out later this week as well, just to help you like get started. And then on the other side of things, we have Brian Hofstein, who's running and helping with like a lot of the communication, just community aspects related to the program. So excited to have Brian helping me out here. And again, we're just really pumped just to kick things off today and see what everyone ends up building. Let's take a step back. Let's just look at some of the different teams that are included in this batch. So we have 14 total. And I think the general trend is that nearly all teams are at least thinking about NFTs or somehow related to them. So that could be like actual collections. There are a couple of collections that have actually launched already and are trying to add some sort of dynamic component to their collection using Tableland to drive that dynamic NFT metadata. And then there are also some teams that are usually or more so on the just pure infrastructure side of things. So maybe looking at Tableland to store data in sort of like a data DAO setting, or maybe it's a deployment option for a Web3 piece of storage. So pretty broad spectrum in a way, but also like these two different batches, different focus in terms of NFTs across that batch, and maybe it's just like infrastructure related to decentralized relational database. So I think that's a good just stopping point right now. We can let everyone go around the room and just introduce yourself. So I think what would be helpful is this program is really meant for like two things. It's one, let's build on Tableland, like prototype something out, try to add value to your actual tech stack with this Web3 SQL database. But then the other half of this is we want to really help you learn about other people in the space, meet other people, help with just launching your product. So this is an 8-week program, but really we don't see that as like a hard stop. We're going to be helping you throughout this process, even if you want things like go-to-market strategy or actual amplification through like Twitter spaces that we can host or Twitter panels, connecting you with continuity funding. So all that is just something to keep in mind. But again, a big component of this is just learning from each other and getting to know each other. So I'll just kick things off, and then if we can, I'll let Brian introduce himself after me, and I'll let anyone else that's on the call from the Tableland side introduce themselves as well. And then if Brian, since you're in the Discord, if you could just help with some of the coordination, maybe we just have these teams alphabetically just introduce themselves, who you are and what you're building. So Dan Buchholz, I'm sort of on like the tech side of things, helping with developer relations, growth. And usually what we'll also do on this call is like a red-green call. So how are you doing? It could be related to actual building or just personally. So I'll also give you my red-green for the day. I'm pretty green, pretty excited to kick things off. And then if we, from there, I'll hand it off to Brian, and Brian, you kind of take things. Like anyone else that's on the
cool
Tableland side.
All right. Thanks, Dan. So we have a live stream going on right now. So some of you might be on Twitter, others on YouTube, but really the action is in our Discord on the Mesa. So that's where all the pilot program participants are right now. So I think we'll actually be doing intros with the team there, as it's not set up right now to stream from Discord here. But I'm Brian. It's great to meet you all. Really stoked for the program. And yeah, I'm feeling super green. This is a really exciting part of the Tableland ecosystem. We've done 2 cohorts now, and they've all been great and had such amazing teams come through and expressing so much creativity, really showcasing just how awesome the protocol is and what it can enable for Web3 builders. And so we're stoked to see what comes to life in this program. So I think, Dan, we'll just actually pause this stream and we'll move into the Mesa, and then we'll come back here for the workshops because we have Filecoin, Toucan, and Chainlink coming through to share some really great workshops. So we'll do a little roundabout in maybe like 15 minutes or so, 10 minutes. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool.
them mobile throughout Web3 as NFTs. And I'll be using Tableland for the metadata. And yeah, I am green and I'm very excited to be here and to join you all.
Awesome.
I can go next. Oh, go next. I'll be quick. I'm Dave. I'm working with a longtime collaborator, Ali. We're both on the East Coast, and we're focusing on kind of pushing to the next layer of carbon credit activity tracking. And we're excited about aggregating, giving everybody a quick glimpse of where things are in the carbon credit market and how granular we can get. That's what we're focusing on building.
Hey, yeah, Brian, I think the duplicate audio is because Sure. Yes. So one of our partners is the Toucan protocol for. So anyone there are a few teams that are actually like related to refi, and I think it's a good opportunity to test out the Toucan protocol if you haven't looked at them already. Just actually, let me make sure. Okay, cool. So yeah, if we want to just hand things off from here, I can let you present, John, and take things over.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm having some issues with my Bluetooth or something in classic 2023 fashion. Let me just see if I can just switch to my speakers.
Cool.
No, not still nothing. I can try to wing it and just speak, or I can try to reload and why don't I just try to dive in and see if we can pull it off even without audio. I'm going to quickly pull up a presentation. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we're doing with at Toucan, and yeah, really excited to kick off this partnership with Tableland, and really hoping hoping we can find some builders who want to build on climate tech using Toucan technology. Let me just pull up my presentation very quickly, and I'll share my screen. Let's see, that looks about right. Cool. All right, can everyone see Climate Action Web3? Looks promising.
I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Great. All right. So I am John X. I'm one of the co-founders at Toucan Protocol. At Toucan, we are building blockchain infrastructure for a regenerative economy. And at the heart of this is a digital carbon market that we want to help facilitate a multi-trillion-dollar value transfer to climate impact creators around the world using blockchains and smart contracts. So the purpose right now is just to walk through a bit and talk a little bit about the context of the problem and how Toucan is working on solving it. And then I'm hoping that my colleague Jack is going to come in a few minutes and talk a little bit about our builder program, which is really designed to make sure builders have the resources that you all need to build products on the infrastructure that we've been creating. So just before I dive in, Dan, last check, everything look and sound all right?
I believe so.
Think so?
There's like a lag.
I see you mouthing. I think so. So I'm gonna take that as a yes. Cool. So what's the situation we're in? At the moment, every year, humanity emits 50 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And I'm sure I'm not really telling you anything new here. This graph on the right shows atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases. And in the last couple of years, well, few hundred years really, it's just gone vertical. And the problem is that these gases have a warming effect. And the effect is that the climate is changing in a very dangerous way. And so in order for us to address this and respond, we have to change our behavior so that we can reduce the amount of emissions that we're emitting, and then also remove greenhouse gases at huge scales. And to do this, this is why the voluntary carbon market exists, to finance these changes. I see a comment that we can't see the screen share. Is that still true? I see it's also now up on the screen. I think it might have been fixed. Yeah? Dan? I can see it now. Great. Cool. Cool. So what is a carbon credit? A carbon credit is a type of impact certificate that's created by a certification organization called a standard when a project can show that they've done something positive for the climate, right? So that project can show that they somehow prevented greenhouse gases from being emitted, reduced emissions, or they've all removed carbon in some way, whether that's some nature-based technique like planting a forest or looking after a wetland, or technological techniques like direct air capture or enhanced weathering. Carbon markets are growing very quickly, and this is because people are kind of cottoning on to the fact that in order for us to get out of this situation and preserve the suitability of Earth to kind of support a thriving life for centuries to come, we need to change our behavior at scale very quickly, and this is going to cost a lot of money. So currently, carbon markets, the voluntary carbon market, is around $2 billion in value, but there are estimates that by 2030, in about 7 years, it could grow by 25 times to 50 billion and up to 100 times by 2050. So this is scaling rapidly. But right now, there are a lot of problems with the way carbon markets work. I don't know if any of you saw recently, I can probably drop the article in the chat. The other day there was well, I'll do it after the talk, but there was an article in The Guardian that was calling to question the integrity of some of the credits being issued by the largest carbon standard, which is called Verra. In any case, there's questions around the integrity of carbon credits and credits issuances. A lot of that is because the data that is used to issue carbon credits is not really publicly accessible. There's also market inefficiencies. Most of the deals, most of the carbon trades of carbon credits are negotiated in private, so it's not clear what prices are for carbon credits. And then we've got that one on the right, ineffective pricing. And there's also quite a lot of fragmentation in the market, that there are a bunch of different standards, a bunch of different registries, and this prevents liquid markets from forming that make it very easy to buy and sell credits. So sellers don't really know if they're getting the best price and where to sell. Buyers also don't know the same thing. And for all of these kind of problems, we started looking at this through the lens of how blockchains and smart contracts work, and came to the conclusion that if we created a process for tokenizing carbon credits, transferring the carbon credit onto a public blockchain, we could actually use Web3 tools to solve a lot of these issues. And that's where Toucan comes in. We have a self-serve and automated system for tokenizing carbon credits that is where it's actually been paused for the last several months for a couple of reasons, but we're about to reopen it relatively soon. That's kind of a little alpha leak. We also have a mechanism for making it easy to buy and sell carbon credits on a liquid exchange, actually an automated market maker, decentralized exchange, through pooling credits that have similar attributes using our carbon pools. And anyone can access this, right? So this is built on public blockchains. We have got Toucan Carbon on both Polygon and Celo. And because it's a public blockchain, anybody can read the data and anybody can submit transactions to buy or sell these, as well as to retire them. So altogether, this forms these three components of what we call the carbon stack: the bridge, which is the process for tokenizing; the Toucan registry, which is kind of the heart of the Toucan's infrastructure; and then carbon pools, which allow us to pool credits together. So what is the idea here? The idea is that right now it's very difficult to build a business that's based on the carbon markets, or at least on the carbon registries, right? Carbon registries don't have open APIs. There are a bunch of different registries, all with different interfaces, different terms of service. It's a very fragmented developer experience. And our vision is, by creating open, extensible and composable infrastructure for carbon markets, we can enable a whole range of builders to build products on top of our infrastructure and serve different stakeholders in the market, therefore bringing value to the market and ultimately kind of creating this network of value creation as different people bring different functionality. So specifically what this means, we've got a couple of ecosystem projects that are building essentially carbon marketplaces, places where you can go and select which carbon credits you want and pay and buy and settle and then retire. We've got some really exciting Web3 native projects that are doing things like liquid staking with a kind of sustainability angle, or some kind of like green NFTs or kind of proof of climate impact NFTs. And we've also got a new initiative now to get builders resources to really dig deep on a particular interesting use case that we're kind of leaning into now, which is around reporting climate action. So right now, when a company or a person retires a carbon credit to make some kind of impact claim, like a net zero claim, it's really difficult to actually go and verify that that credit was retired for that particular company. With Toucan, that's very easy to do, and it's very easy to build really nice kind of climate impact dashboards for companies. So I know Jack I think has turned up. I think he's gonna talk in a couple of minutes about some of our builder initiatives, and really kind of focused on how we can use Toucan to showcase climate action and ultimately help companies and people make more credible net zero claims when they're want to showcase what kind of action they're taking to support how we're addressing the climate crisis. Here's a couple of examples. I mentioned the climate impact dashboards. We also have a use case around making it easy to buy and sell, because we use decentralized exchanges to bring liquidity to the market. It's actually possible now to set up essentially a carbon retail storefront that doesn't actually require anybody to buy any carbon credits. Kind of is very capital efficient because you don't have to front the money to buy carbon credits. You can just list what's in the pools. Don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but in any case, the architecture or the infrastructure we've developed brings a lot of additional functionality that's not present in the carbon markets. And now we have the really exciting job of engaging with the builder community and getting them the resources to build products that take advantage of this functionality that the Toucan core team is not building, because we're too focused on kind of making sure that the infrastructure we built is really rock solid. We've got a number of early adopters, including Tableland. So big thanks. And I know this is kind of the beginning of a really fruitful partnership, or a partnership that has some roots as well. I think I want to make sure I give Jack enough time to talk about the Builders program. So here's some information on how to start building, and maybe it's a good time to hand it off to you, Jack. I'm hoping and assuming that you all heard everything I just said, because I still have got some sort of audio issues. All right, Jack looks like he's talking.
Yeah, so thank you. Actually, John can't hear me, so I'm not going to chat with him. Hey, everyone. My name is Jack Polakar. I am leading the Builder program and the Builder Hub at Toucan. In short, my job is to support builders building with our technology and build out a suite of tools that support them to stand up companies that are building with Toucan technology. So that's, helping set up and support builders going through this mini accelerator, and really excited to work with the Tableland team on this. Excited to meet some of you who are in the audience. And another piece of this is, moving past just the accelerator. Toucan has, again, like I said, a number of tools that we've designed to support builders. So from our soon to be launched bounty program to our grant foundation, we're always happy to speak with teams, developers, builders, people who are even just curious in this space. So our doors are always open, but really happy to engage with builders through this program right now. So another thing that I can touch on, sort of digging in a bit deeper to some of these use cases that we're really excited about. One of the first sort of priority topics that I want to chat about is this impact reporting dashboard and that John mentioned. And, we actually just jumped off a call with the state of Colorado, learning about their problems that they're facing as they're, adopting climate and carbon initiatives at the state level. And this is a massive, massive opportunity because a number of states, I'm talking for the US right now, but states have their net zero goals, whether it's 2025, 2030, especially going into 2050. And they understand that the process of decarbonization moves incredibly slowly. And to reach those goals, they're going to have to, engage the carbon markets and buy offsets. And as the carbon markets have been evolving, transparency into what carbon credits are being purchased and used as offsets is becoming more and more important. I don't know if anybody saw the news from The Guardian, but there's just a lot of question about how these things are verified, but also who's buying what and who's retiring what type of carbon credits. So when we look at the impact dashboards, the impact reporting dashboards, you're taking one of the key components of, bridged carbon or tokenized carbon credits, and the transparency that is provided by bridging these credits on chain solves this inherent problem of what type of carbon credits are these? Can I trust that these are actually legitimate? And a little bit of backstory from there, even in the last few years, companies have been able to go out and buy thousands, hundred thousands, even millions of carbon credits, and they get a PDF receipt that says, oh yeah, this is verified, this is who purchased it, this is when they purchased it. And tracking down exactly what companies purchased what credits has been incredibly difficult. So we see this opportunity to build this impact reporting dashboard that takes the transparency and that puts the onus on the organizations of any size to have transparent reporting. So it's saying, look, no one's going to be able to come to you and say, we don't know about those carbon credits that you're buying. Those look sketchy. And the company can say, oh no, here's the link to our public dashboard where it says who we bought those credits for, what the credits are, when they were purchased, if they were traded, and then when they were retired and what they were retired for. And so we see a really, foundational use case for a platform that can be expanded upon and built out to a really sizable business because there's a strong market opportunity. There's a really wide user base from, again, I want to say your SMB level organization all the way to, again, enterprise Fortune 500 companies and state level programs who are going to be purchasing, in theory, millions of carbon credits. And so when you look at the opportunity that building out, even the MVP version of this product provides, there is a lot of room for expansion and building a real, a good sized business that we believe is VC backable. So we love to be able to field any questions around this. People are able to reach out to us and chat about this use case or other use cases using Toucan technology, and we'd be happy to answer those questions. John, I don't know if you want to touch on any other use cases on your side. I think you can actually hear me. Dan, I don't know if he's sounding static.
Yeah, it sounds a little robotic.
Nope, you're dead. I would try a mute and unmute.
You just can't win with all these audio issues. Just I don't know.
You'd think if someone can fix John's computer, that's another bounty.
Yeah.
Is that another bounty?
Oh no!
Oh,
now you're perfect.
there he is.
I fixed it. Do I get the bounty?
Yeah.
No, I think you hit it on the nose. I mean, I guess just to emphasize, while we're really excited and have some resources being lined up for this impact kind of dashboarding, showcasing your climate action, and that doesn't mean that's all we're interested in. There's a lot of market functionality that we think would be really interesting to have built. There's a lot of data infrastructure that would be really interesting to have built around showing some of the what they call the MRV data, right? The monitoring, reporting, and verification data that are used on the supply side to verify that the carbon impact actually took place. It'd be really valuable for people to be able to view that data and use it as to kind of assess whether or not the carbon credits are high quality. So I think just generally, if you're interested in jumping in and starting building at the intersection of crypto and climate, we want to talk. And we're more than happy to have conversations, hear ideas, help shape ideas. If you want us to feed you something a little more built out, we've got quite a lot of documentation on our end about some of these ideas as well. So yeah, I think that's probably the main message I'd say. There might have been something else I was going to say, but I forgot. So I'll think of it shortly, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys' time and really.
Is there anything, Jack?
Oh, yeah, I forget that you can't hear Dan.
That's so weird.
Dan, go ahead with what you were saying.
I was gonna sort of wrap things up, and in case you had something in particular you wanted to mention first.
I think that's it on our side. Thanks for letting us share today.
Of course, and if we do have any questions, I'll be sure to forward them along. And I was just looking back at some of the details around how Tableland used your protocol. So I think it's pretty cool, just the different ways in which someone can retire carbon credits. For those who aren't familiar, the Tableland rigs had a NFT launch. We used carbon.fy to make some estimates and actually purchase credits around that. So pretty flexible in terms of how you can even like leverage your technology. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And I want to say, even if going through this accelerator, you're not totally focused on a use case that's sort of building on top of Toucan, there's always ways to integrate Toucan into an existing process or project to give it that level of climate impact. And we've seen a lot of companies that they may just be focused on data analysis for a certain chain, but then being able to integrate something from Toucan that's allowing people to offset their footprint from how much their NFT portfolio may be producing. We've seen some really awesome edge cases of people integrating Toucan into an existing project that's not completely climate focused. So always happy to innovate in that area with builders as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, again, yeah, really appreciate the time, and looking forward to seeing what these teams, like how they use your protocol, and again, like how we can even just continue building out that partnership. So appreciate your guys' time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Bye.
Nice. So perfect timing. Hi, Jenks. How's it going?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Doing well. It's been a fun morning so far. So we had some start off like intros of the program, got everyone just connected, and then obviously we just had Toucan protocol talking there, and then now I'm excited to bring you in here to talk about Filecoin. And I think a lot of teams are actually pretty interested or already using Filecoin, and generally in the space, a lot of teams are familiar with just IPFS and protocol labs, but specifically Filecoin. Really excited to see what you're going to talk about here today and just help teams understand what they could potentially build with the Filecoin protocol.
That's right, Dan. Thank you for inviting me here. My morning has just started. I'll try to make it a good one. I was looking at the Twitter thread with all the teams that is building currently with Tableland. And yes, quite a few of them are using Filecoin. One of them might be involved in the storage providing business as well. So that's very exciting. I feel like my presentation might be too shallow for them. But nonetheless, that's all I got this morning. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. and talk about it.
Sounds
Let me
good.
know if you can see my slides.
Let's give it a second. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. There we go. Yep, I can see it. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Lovely. So I'll go ahead and get started. My name is James. I'm a developer advocate for Filecoin Foundation. I work in a team called Ecosystem Working Group, which means it's a joint sort of workforce between Protocol Labs and Filecoin and some other organizations to push the network forward. So we want for a decentralized storage network, what we want is more storage providers joining the network, so more capacity for storage, and we want more storage clients, so people paying for the services that storage providers are providing, and the one of the most important thing we also want is developer adoption. So that's the team that I work in. Developer working group intends to increase the adoption of IPFS and Filecoin technology. And today my talk is going to be somewhat a introductory talk to the Filecoin decentralized storage network to everyone. Now, before I dive into that, cloud storage is a very, very big market. Cloud business in general is estimated to be $10 trillion in due time. That's the bullish scenario. The base scenario, or even the conservative scenario, is 0.6 trillion in the near future. So it is quite a big market. These days, so right now, the study shows that about 92% of the businesses use cloud technology to store their important business data. So it is a huge market right now. And Filecoin has a potential to tap into this huge market by providing decentralized alternatives to the centralized cloud services out there. Clouds are working fine for a lot of people, but there are problems with it too. One is data security. 92 businesses have multi-cloud strategy. There is a concern about single point of failure. So they're not only just using Amazon or Google. Some of them have more, and 51 businesses do not use encryption on these clouds. So there is a data security problems that people are using this centralized technology. The cost and price is also another one. The cloud budgets, a lot of them goes to waste. 30% of their cost is not getting used on the proper data that's being stored on the cloud, and 61% of the companies they're trying to optimize their cloud spending so they don't waste a lot of money on this. People are getting concerned about spending too much money on the cloud. And because of fixed pricing or one plan fits all pricing, the transparency of the pricing is not so great. There's also concern about control over data or data ownership. 48% of the businesses store highly classified information on cloud services. But to use centralized cloud tools requires total trust on it. There's not only a high degree of trust. Overall, if you want your data to be verifiable or to be extra secure, you need to pay a higher fee to ensure those services are in place. Now, the decentralized storage stack that is offered by IPFS and Filecoin, which is built on technologies such as libp2p and LPRD, provides a decentralized alternative to customers who are using these platforms. So IPFS and Filecoin allow products to be built quite easily on top of it through storage helpers like Textile, Infura, and Pinata, and allow decentralization to be easily incorporated into people's projects. The benefit of decentralized storage in general can be classified into a few. One is security and availability. So when it comes to security, a lot of people think that's access control, but that's not just the only aspect of security. Access control is just one of them, and indeed, a lot of data breaches happen because of people using not so good practices to store their credential, causing data to be leaked. Human error is still most important contributing factor to data breaches these days. But there's more to security. Availability also is tied to the security. So Filecoin offers 3,900 nodes to choose from for the customers. So you can geographically distribute your content across the whole world, giving it more availability, but also increasing its security. So you're not likely to lose your content. Storage provider use cryptographic proofs to show data is secure and intact. And encryption is handled by data owners. So you use your own key to unlock your encryption, and only that key can unlock it. No one else can. I mentioned data verifiability, which is data immutability as well. IPFS, interplanetary file system, natively has this function built in. You don't have to pay extra for this. And the cost, compared to the cloud storage, centralized cloud storage, it is a small fraction of the cost to use Filecoin storage. And often, if you meet certain criteria, it's free to use. And the Filecoin decentralized network is able to remove a single point of failure using peer-to-peer technology powered by libp2p and IPFS. The storage nodes all work as one, and replication can happen in geographic sparse locations and still be retrieved from single gateway or from a network of gateways. And it remains the same because content's fingerprint is stored on the network, and you'll always know what you're retrieving from the network-wide storage node. And there's also stronger ownership of the data. The operators who run the storage nodes is storing the data, and they have the data encrypted and stored in quite often in open format. So the storage node can decide on what to take in on their node and then what not to take. And there's also performance. So the theoretically decentralized infrastructure is able to provide better speed than centralized locations because it stores content closer to the user, where users are. I'll then introduce a little bit about interplanetary file system, not too much. So interplanetary file system stands for is a decentralized network that builds on peer-to-peer networking technology and uses content-based addressing. What it means is that instead of one server to provide information and maybe use content delivery network to serve its content, what happens on it is you have thousands or tens of thousands of peers to help distribute, to help with the networking of the request, and also find contents on the network. So all of those nodes work as one. And it is not location-based, it's content-based addressing, meaning that the network doesn't care about where the content stores. Instead, what it does is it generates the fingerprint. We call it content identifier or CID. This content identifier will be the ID for the content, and it will be part of the URL to be able to find the content on the network. So this way we can break free from the centralized address-based addressing schema. And make the network content aware and also find things with content fingerprint only. There are many ways to use IPFS. One of them is running an IPFS node yourself. There is IPFS desktop. There is IPFS CLI tools. There is IPFS implementation in quite a few languages and quite a few environments for you to incorporate into your project natively as well. Such as NPM package center, different operating systems, package center, you can all install IPFS quite easily. IPFS retrieves its content through HTTP gateways. This is a bridge between Web3 storage and Web2. If you put in the gateway address in HTTP protocol, it will be able to translate the two different protocols and allow you to retrieve the content. And these contents are served by gateway operators around the world. There's quite a few of them to use these days. You can either host your own node, like I mentioned earlier, or you can pay infrastructure company like Infura to host your IPFS node. And there is also pinning services that you can pay using a fee, using a SaaS model to make sure your content persists on IPFS network. Now, just because you're paying these content provider doesn't mean your content will stay there forever. And this is why Filecoin Network is created, and it complements IPFS by persisting data on top of the IPFS network. IPFS network itself has been growing quite a bit from 2019 to 2022. We have seen increasing number of contributors to the network. The retrieval speed is also increasing quite a bit, from 40 seconds in 2019, which is quite unusable, to 400 milliseconds now these days. And the supported browsers are also increasing. So there were 2 browsers that supports IPFS earlier, so the help of extension. And now there are 5 browsers that accepts IPFS protocol. 3 of them also accepts IPFS : / in their address bar natively. So this is a great achievement, making IPFS, the decentralized file system, more ubiquitous in our day-to-day use. IPFS monthly user also increased from 5 million to 50 million. And we have thousands of IPFS-powered dApps out there. So I mentioned earlier about Filecoin's about Filecoin network complements the IPFS network. Now, to be able to provide a reliable storage and long-term storage, Filecoin network is needed. It is designed to leverage crypto economic incentive to keep the data distributed, reliable, and verifiably stored, and also incredibly cheap. It can be, the data on Filecoin can be as permanent as you want it, or as redundant as you like it on the network. Filecoin is a decentralized storage network protocol, enables clients, storage clients, and storage providers to make deals together. So we call them storage deals. There are a large number of people using Filecoin network these days. The most prominent are a few logos that you can see on the slides. So the USC Shoah Foundation, OpenSea, Starling Lab, Internet Archive, and NYC Open Data. These organizations are using Filecoin's verifiability and also incredibly cheap storage to persist the data that they think is very important to humanity. Filecoin is a network that is completely compatible with IPFS and other Web3 protocols such as NEAR, and it provides verifiable data and uses cryptographic proof to ensure that all of the participants in the network is doing the right thing, and it will incentivize correct behaviors and and penalize for incorrect behaviors on the network. Giving opportunities for people to provide good services on the network. It is also a very massive decentralized network. There is 17 exabyte of capacity around the globe, provided by 3,900 plus storage providers. The network is governed by consensus and not controlled by a single corporation. We run a lot of things by the community, and there is a governance process to make any changes to the protocol itself. What happens in a Filecoin storage deal? So the Filecoin storage deal is initiated by the client usually. So the client will make a time-limited deal, currently either 6 months or 18 months, and then we'll send the deal on the network for storage providers to compete. The winning storage provider will be able to get the deal, and they can prove to the client that they have received the files that they wanted to store, and that's called proof of replication. And once that proof of replication is able to be produced, the storage node or storage provider will need to provide a timestamp on the Filecoin network to prove that they still have the file. So a random subset of the client data will be the proof of that they still have this random subset is being sent to the network, called proof of space-time. Providers are paid incrementally in field, which is a currency for Filecoin network. And if they can provide this proof, if they can't, then they will be heavily slashed. Towards the end of the storage deal, the client either needs to renew this deal or let it expire. Letting it expire means the storage provider will is no longer obligated or punished for not storing this data. So any client can renew this deal and then persist the data for in the future. And client can also make retrieval deals to retrieve that data. Compared to other networks, Filecoin provides a really affordable storage for anyone who wants to use decentralized storage protocols. Filecoin's network is one of the best to use. It has the largest market cap as a blockchain protocol. It has the highest network growth and speed. So the network keeps increasing and increasing in the speed that is able to be able to compete with cloud storage out there. It is enterprise ready. There are about roughly, if you count the hard drives itself, it counts for about $2.5 billion worth of hardware investment on the network. So there's a huge amount of investment done by the storage provider businesses that is supporting the backbone of the network. There is quite a large developer adoption. There is a growing ecosystem out there using IPFS and Filecoin. It has a larger treasury to dispense funds for public goods. We're giving out awards to public goods programs, and also giving out grants for open source development or any projects that are using Filecoin in their projects. There's also a high degree of decentralization over other networks. With 3,900 nodes available in the world, Filecoin is able to provide more decentralization than other networks. Storage is just the beginning. In this year, Filecoin is launching Filecoin Virtual Machine, and this brings on-chain user programmability to Filecoin network. Now, for up till now, Filecoin is able to do storage very well, and storage only. But with FEM, we allow computation over state, so that developers can build custom actors. We call it, it's our way of calling smart contracts. And on top of that, a lot of interesting use cases can be built on Filecoin network. So things like DeFi, ERC20 tokens, or NFTs could be a possibility for Filecoin network in the future. I think about 3 teams in the pilot program is already using FEM. FEM brings computation to Filecoin. Simply put, it is inspired by a hypervisor model. So the Filecoin virtual machine intends to run multiple runtimes and not just one, to support different different standards for smart contracts. And it is based on WASM technology. One of the first supported runtime will be EVM. So Filecoin at first will be EVM compatibility, and we'll be building other compatibility to other networks. But also there is intention of having Filecoin standards for its own smart contracts. Filecoin also provides native interaction with the storage layer that Filecoin provides. So you can interact with the Filecoin market quite easily and the data stored on the network. The FEM team have built integration with EVM, as I mentioned earlier. It is quite easy to interact with it right now because of the developer community and the tooling in the EVM sphere is very, very mature. So now you can connect your MetaMask, test the testnet of Filecoin, get some test coins, and then execute your ERC, well, not ERC, but Solidity smart contract on the Filecoin virtual machine testnet, hyperspace testnet. And we have some videos online to show you how to use Remix to deploy the smart contract to the network very easily. There's also support for hard hat Ethereum development environment if you're interested in using that one in your project. So Filecoin network, like IPFS network, can be accessed by the node software. We have 3 for now. Lotus is the most popular one. It is used by more than 3,000 nodes. We also have alternative called Venus, and we're building a new one called Forest that is completely Rust-based implementation of the node implementation. For anyone who wants to have a deeper integration with Filecoin network, you can use one of these node softwares to interact with the chain. So where does that put us in the whole Web3 enabled architecture? What we wanted to do is Filecoin IPFS nodes should sit behind the scenes and provide storage infrastructure to all of the applications out there. And the applications can access them easily through the help of storage helpers. That is NFT storage, Web3 storage, textile, Tableland, if you need databases, S3, which is another collection of technology that allows you to have a deeper integration with Filecoin and IPFS and have final control over storage deals if you want to, and then many other applications to use the storage. So it should be as easy as sending an API call or incorporating these storage helpers SDKs in your project to be able to interact with it. For the front end, it can be hosted on IPFS through some of the tools that I will introduce to you, such as Fleek. And then for the logic layer, you're free to use either Ethereum, other layer ones, but also you can now deploy your contracts to FEM. So we intend to provide the logic and the storage and for the Web3 enabled stack. There are some tools that I want to introduce you to quickly adopt IPFS and Filecoin technology in your project. Fleek is one of them. I use it all the time to make my demo softwares. So it is like the Netlify of Web3. It allows you to hook up to your GitHub repository or any other repository that you use, deploy to IPFS and Filecoin very quickly, and then your website will be served through Fleek services, but persisted on Filecoin and then served on IPFS network. It should take just a few minutes. If your site is already built and deployed somewhere else, it should just take a few minutes for this to be done. NFT storage is one of the public good program that Filecoin IPFS provides. Right now, there is about 100 million NFT objects stored on this service. It is like a Dropbox for NFTs, and many NFT marketplaces, NFT projects, NFT platforms are using this service to provide immutable data to their smart contracts. So the reference on the smart contract is actually written actually has a IPFS link on it, so that the owner knows that the content that they have purchased, the digital rights to these contents are written in a smart contract in a way that the owner of the files cannot change it very easily. So this is incredibly popular service. If you're running an NFT project, take a look at it, and it only takes a few lines of code to actually incorporate into your project. For any other general storage, Web3 storage is a way to go. It is also like Dropbox, except in this service, over 5 GB, you will need to pay a subscription fee. And it acts as a gateway to access IPFS and then persist your data on Filecoin. S3 is another tool that builds an end-to-end solution for a developer who wants to use IPFS and Filecoin. It is able to interact with Filecoin and make Filecoin storage deals in a more automated way, and it provides a lot more monitoring for the storage that you store on Filecoin. Now, S3 also uses libp2p protocol to establish peer-to-peer communication. So if you run a S3 node, you'll be joining the S3 network. And it automates a lot of things such as deal making and allows you to monitor these things quite easily. S3 also has a S3.tech, a cloud version of it. You can fork, this is all open source, you can fork the S3.tech repository and make your own interfaces for your storage backend that uses Filecoin. And Tableland, you should know about this or about to learn the Tableland technology. I think the Rigs product is this slide is a little bit more outdated and there's a lot more to it, but the Rigs is a decentralized relational database built on IPFS. And there is ongoing integration plans to integrate with Filecoin in the future. So I won't do justice explaining this. I'll let Tableland team to explain what it is and how you can use it in a project.
Sure. Yeah, and appreciate all that detail that you went through. Like I personally have used a number of those tools that you mentioned, which just make it extremely easy to interact with IPFS and Filecoin and whatnot. And especially so related to rigs, I think a number of teams in our program right now are actually even building NFT collections or NFT related projects. And we have some information in our blog site that's dev.tableland.xyz in terms of how we've actually structured our rigs NFT. But basically the way we view it is that we work really well with things like Filecoin and IPFS because we can actually add metadata to those CIDs and those images and files that you're uploading to the Filecoin network and store those values in just a table cell, allowing something like an NFT to be more mutable in nature and more dynamic in nature because you can simply use these on-chain actions that mutate the table cells, and that would just point. It's basically acting as a pointer to the Filecoin or IPFS network. So all of that is powered by Tableland under the hood, and the rigs are just a good, really we dogfed our this whole process, really building rigs just to understand exactly how you can leverage the Tableland within your stack, Tableland protocol within your stack. But again, thanks, Jenks. Appreciate the time. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be sure to forward them along and introduce you if that's okay. And I know there are a number of teams again that are planning on using Filecoin, so excited to see exactly how that pans out throughout the program.
Thanks. Happy to answer any questions. If there's something I don't know, I can certainly pull someone from Protocol Labs or Filecoin Foundation to answer your questions.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you. And awesome. Hi, Richard. How's it going?
Howdy, good. Is my audio working?
Yep, I can hear you.
Fantastic.
Yep. Cool. So I think you're the last protocol presenting today, and I know that a lot of teams are pretty familiar with Chainlink, but I'll let you introduce yourself and exactly what you can help enable. And I know that I myself have even used some of the resources you put out and put them in our doc site around just dynamic NFTs, and I've experimented with any API. So I'll let you take it over from here.
Okay, cool. First of all, I guess just like a bit of housekeeping, would love questions from anyone who's listening. I vastly prefer interactive conversations instead of just me blabbing at you for like 20, 30 minutes. So if while I'm talking, anything comes up that you have a question about, want to know more about, want me to dive into more, let me know. I'm assuming in StreamYard that the chat here is where everyone is. Is that correct?
There's a little bit of disconnect with like the actual audience, but I'll relay any sort of questions that come from our Discord into here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. My plan today was to talk a little bit about what Chainlink is. My understanding is you all are familiar with most of the stuff around Web3 and smart contracts, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. And then dive into some kind of high-level demos of a few of our products, just to give you an idea of what you can use those for, and maybe talk about some use cases instead of just diving into like one example use case. Spend some time looking at like each of the products and talk about how you could use them. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Cool. Let me share my screen. Cool.
There we go.
Yeah, so I think first question, what is Chainlink? Before we dive into that question too far, need to make sure we're all on the same page as far as smart contracts go. Smart contracts are essentially a digital contract. They're important because they enable transparent, going too far. They enable transparent agreements, and we can see what the terms of the agreement are, and we can be ensured that they'll be enforced. Traditional contracts, we had this person in the middle here, this entity in the middle, a third party. And depending on where you are in the world, what the environment's like where you are, that can be anything from works great most of the time to terrible, never want to use it. I'm in the United States and the legal system here works great most of the time. Even with the idea of most of the time being a part of it there, that still kind of gets under my skin. That's why I think that, when you have smart contracts that can kind of replace that third party in the middle, where you as the participants can see exactly what's going to happen and you know that the terms of that contract will be honored, makes them obviously vastly superior to traditional agreements. Now, when it comes to blockchains, there's this idea of consensus, and we all need to reach an agreement, right? We have the different nodes within the blockchain, and those different nodes all have to agree on the piece of information. So I don't know if we'll be able to do this given how it's kind of disconnected from the audience, but I have a question for them all about consensus. And it may be a hard question. It's not a trick question. It's just, what's 1 + 1? So Dan, what's 1 + 1?
Well, I would say 2.
Fantastic. I say 2 as well. So we have consensus, right? We agree 1 + 1 is 2. Everyone in watching should agree it's 2. Not a trick question. Now I'm going to ask you a harder question. Dan, what's the current temperature?
In my present location, it's, let's say, 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, I'd say 48. Yeah, right? Because it depends on where you are when you ask this question. This is a non-deterministic value, and it's hard to come to consensus on that, right? That leads to what I view as like the biggest problem with blockchains. And when you think about blockchains, you think about smart contracts. It reminds me of Genie from Aladdin. Phenomenal cosmic power, right? Like all this possibility, all this potential, itty bitty living space, because we have to have deterministic values. We have to reach consensus. And this is often referred to as the oracle problem. What's the solution to the oracle problem? It's oracles. What's an oracle? So an oracle is any sort of device that allows you to bring off-chain real-world data, non-deterministic data, on-chain. So Chainlink provides oracles. They provide many different products within those oracles, but that's essentially what Chainlink does. It provides that solution to having an oracle. Now, you may be thinking in your head, cool, so I just need to be able to get off-chain data on-chain, and I can do that, right? I can set up a server in my room right here, and I can bring off-chain data on-chain, and everything's good. And yes, you can do that. Like, that will work. You can provide off-chain non-deterministic data to a blockchain that way yourself. You could even use, like, set up some redundancy where you have multiple nodes. But what you've done then is you've taken the decentralized benefits of blockchain, all of that like awesome, fantastic decentralized goodness that is blockchains, the redundancy and everything like that, and you've centralized it. So while it does work, you then end up with a single point of failure. And so again, that's where Chainlink comes in. Chainlink is a network of Oracle nodes. So much like we have the blockchain with a decentralized network, Chainlink Oracle nodes are a decentralized network as well. So before I go any further, I know we have a bit of delay. Any questions about consensus, decentralization, anything like that before we dive into what Chainlink has to offer?
I'll give it a sec. Yeah, just because of that delay. But I think like this is a pretty interesting visual just because of how Tableland like fits into the equation, because like the way the Tableland network works is like it's on-chain writes, and then you can read that off-chain at the Tableland. Like, we have a gateway set up that accesses our network of nodes. And so on the left-hand side, one of those data sources, and I actually have like a tutorial that I put out with the Any API for just getting table state back on chain, which is like, it's just a cool showcase of how Chainlink can be used in tandem with Tableland.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be transparent. I've dug into Tableland a little bit, but I'm definitely not like super versed there, but it seems amazing. And I have in like my little talk through the link to y'all's dynamic NFT project that was vaguely familiar. And it's really cool. Like, I like it a lot. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, thank you for that tutorial. Like, it helped guide me like an idea of what to build. So it's pretty useful there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm assuming no questions.
Yeah, we can move on.
We'll move on. Okay, so what does Chainlink offer? We have three main things that I'm going to talk about today. That's data feeds, VRF, which is verifiable randomness function, and automation. So starting with data feeds, this is going to be bringing like that traditional, as you think of it, off-chain data on-chain. The primary use case right now are asset pairs. So that's going to be things like the price of ETH in terms of USD, stuff like that. We can take a look real quick at what these data feeds look like. If you were to head to data.chain.link, you'd see something like this. And these are going to be those asset pairs. So we just look at like the ETH USD pair. There's a few interesting things to talk about on this page. I mentioned the decentralized network, right? So these on the right are all the different sources of this information, where it's coming from and what value they're reporting. Much like that temperature question, questions like what's the current price of ETH are going to depend, right? It's going to depend on the exact exchange, exact moment in time that you're looking at, stuff like that. So the way that you can bring that sort of information into a deterministic value for a contract is you get all of these different values, and then that's what's submitted to a aggregator contract. That aggregator contract then can say, based on this data set, I can determine the median value. So you can take a non-deterministic question, like what's the price, and create a deterministic function that will return that. And regardless of when you run that function, given this set of input data, I'll always get the same output. So you see the different oracles. There's something called trigger parameters here. That's going to be what causes this price that we're reporting to update. So we have the deviation threshold, so if the price changes, or on a regular heartbeat, on a regular cadence, it'll update as well. You can see how many different oracles have responded. So currently for this one, there's 31 out of 31 possible. We need at least 21 for this to be considered like a trusted answer. So that's data feeds. As far as looking at it from the website side of things, if you wanted to use this information in your project, how would you go about doing that? So I always like to start with docs.chain.link, documentation, always the best thing to go to. I'm sure, Dan, you feel the same way, like always start with the docs.
Totally.
If you go to our documentation and you were to click on data feeds, you'd see our data feed documentation here, and it'll talk you through like how the price feeds, which is one of our data feeds, come to be. We have proof of reserves, NFT floor pricing as well. But if we wanted to look at price feeds in particular, we go there and we have example contracts. I'm sure everybody's probably familiar with Remix, but if you're not, it's a online IDE. It's kind of like the, I want to dip my toe in the water of the Web3 world. What's really nice is you can just click open in Remix and you can see this example contract right here in Remix for you. Just talk through this contract very quickly. And again, if I'm going too fast, if people have questions, please let me know. Happy to slow down, but don't want to bore you with going too slow. So our price feeds stuff, we mentioned earlier that we have the aggregator contract. That's going to be the contract that goes ahead and takes all the responses from the oracles and comes back with a single value. So we'll go ahead and import the interface for that. And in our contract, we create a price feed based on that. When it comes to using the price feeds, you'll notice here there's this note about the network and the address. Different price feeds have different addresses. So if we wanted to look here in the documentation under contract addresses, we can see we have quite a few different chains. On the different chains, we have a bunch of different asset pairs. Each one's going to have a unique address. So for this example, it's on Goerli testnet, it's ETHUSD. So when we create this contract in our constructor, we pass in that as an argument to our aggregator interface. And then we have a function called getLatestPrice. And getLatestPrice, it returns a bunch of different things. And the reason these are commented out like this, I don't know if everyone's familiar with this, when you have a function that returns a bunch of different values in Solidity, if you don't do anything with them, you have to leave the comma there. So if you were to take all these out and put this on one line, like this is what it would look like without all of these comments in here. It's just a interesting little fun tidbit. You know, you'd have like comma, we want to get the price, comma, comma, comma. I feel like I'm starting to sing a song here. But that's why those are in there, just as a little extra piece of information for y'all. So we get the price back, and we get that from price feed latest round data. Latest round data is going to be the last response from the oracles. If we were to deploy this, got to make sure that we pick our injected provider there, have the right contract selected, click deploy, confirm it. If this looks weird, it's because I'm using Brave Wallet instead of MetaMask. We'll wait for this to come back. Mentally, everyone play some Jeopardy music while we wait. Any questions while we wait?
Not seeing any right now. But yeah, I think the flow so far makes sense to me. No
Okay.
question from my end.
Cool. So we've got it deployed. We'll click get latest price. You'll notice this is kind of the blue color. That means it's a view function, which is pretty awesome, I think, is that you can use the Oracle data, get the price back, and it's free because it's stored on chain, right? It's a view function. You'll also notice the price of ETH is like, man, we're doing great, right? Like, look at this. That's because Solidity doesn't have the concept of decimal places. So within our price feed, we could get the number of decimals from this as well. I'll tell you if it's a fiat currency that you're returning the value in, it's going to be 8. If it's a token, it's going to be 16. So we need to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots over. So our actual value is 1,628.69. But yeah, that's how price feeds work. They're pretty simple to use, implement, and yeah. I don't know if we have any questions about these or if we want to just keep on going to automation.
I think, yeah, we could probably just keep on chugging along. But yeah, I think the idea totally makes sense. Easy workflow there.
Cool. Or I guess we'll do VRF next, not automation. So we'll do VRF, verifiable randomness functions. It's a fancy way of saying random numbers. Again, when it comes to blockchains and random numbers, there's some like tricky business that can happen. When you request a random number, if you're doing something like using a hash of the sender's address, or you're doing something like a hash of the current block hash, right, to get your random number back. Seems like that should be random. You don't know when it's going to be executed, so like the block hash is going to be random, and then like the hashing algorithm will produce a random output. But on the left side of this image here, we have the people mining the blocks, those miners, and sometimes if they wanted to be malicious, they could look at that and say, hey, this value isn't going to benefit me. I'm not going to mine it right now. I'm going to wait until it's a value that benefits me. It's kind of in my mind, I think about it like rolling dice. If you're rolling dice to get a random number, they can't pick the number that the dice is going to roll, but they can keep re-rolling the dice until they get the number they want. That's one of the issues with like on-chain randomness. I know that after the merge, there's been some conversation about randomness. There's some great Stack Overflow articles out there. If you have questions, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at rgottlieber. I can post that somewhere. Can't type in the chat right here. But if you want to reach out, I can explain it to you. There's still some, maybe not so verifiable randomness there. But Chainlink VRF ensures that the value is verifiably random. The Oracle will generate a random number, and it will submit back to the blockchain the value as well as a proof for how it's random. So that gives you the ability to have provably random numbers. So again, we can walk through starting with the documentation, how to get a random number. Whoops, I went to automation. So Chainlink VRF documentation. If we want to get a random number, we can look here on documentation to get a random number. We'll need to create a subscription. So that's going to be the first thing. So vrf.chain.link will allow you to create a subscription. Essentially, subscriptions, I like to think of them as kind of like a bucket of link tokens. So what is link tokens? Link is the currency of the Oracle network. It's how the Oracle nodes are rewarded for doing work for you. That could be everything from generating that random number to the fact that they're then going to be storing information on chain, which will have a gas fee associated with it. So everything that you do with Chainlink, you can pay with Link token. And then regardless of the network you're on, it'll be put on chain. So that's just kind of like where Link comes from. If you need Link for testnets, there's faucets.chain.link. And here you can request testnet link. Depending on the test network, you could also request the currency of that network. It just depends on what network you're on. So back here, we'll create a subscription. So again, this is going to be that bucket of link that then we can subscribe to and use with our contracts. Do this, we will confirm. I'll wait for it to be confirmed. So just kind of thinking, subscription created. Oh no, where'd it go? All right, so we have our subscription here. We'll add funds to it, so we can add some link. This is kind of funding that subscription, so we're putting money in that bucket. When it comes to VRF, like I know you mentioned earlier that a lot of people were using Tableland for creating like NFT projects. I like to think of VRF as being like if you have any sort of random attributes, rarities, stuff like that with your project, VRF is a fantastic thing to use for those. So, when somebody mints an NFT, the attributes are randomly generated, and you know that your participants, users can know that the thing that's being generated is fair. It's provably fair. It's not just, you're saying, oh yeah, sure, it's random.
Yeah. But there was one example that I like to, with that VRF workflow, like a cool way with Tableland is so you have this like table that you've minted on chain, you have all the values, whatever your column set up, and maybe one of those values you want randomness. So you can use VRF to just overwrite and mutate some table cell, which automatically would update the NFT itself. So like mutable cells based on the VRF.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. One thing to make sure is if you're using VRF you want to make sure that the number that's returned is used right when it's returned. Otherwise, again, you can kind of lose that true randomness aspect if like you're storing it and waiting to use it for blocks to go past. But it sounds like what you're talking about is like it gets stored in the table and that automatically would change some attribute, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect. So we've created our subscription, and you'll notice we have no consumers yet. Nobody can reach their hand into our nice bucket of link. So what do we do next? We're going to fly through the documentation, and we're going to create a VRF v2 compatible contract by clicking this awesome Open and Remix button. And this will give us a template, if you will, of how to create this contract. You'll notice that we import a few things here, some contracts, the coordinator interface, the consumer base, and confirmed owner. Basically, this is just letting us interact with that subscription that we created. So we'll go ahead and set up our contract here, let it know what types it is. We have a request status struct, but I'm going to focus down here on the actual constructor where we create our subscription, and we have the address of the VRF consumer base contract that we're using. And we also have the coordinator interface. Similarly to price feeds, these contract addresses may change depending on what network you're on. So that's something that in the documentation, if you look at supported networks here, you could see the different addresses depending on which one you're at. Something else too that we can talk about is the different GUI hashes. This is going to be basically what gas lane you're in as far as how fast it will execute your transaction. And then max gas limit is going to be the maximum amount. You can set this in the contract, and I'll show you that in a second, but going to be the maximum amount that the callback into your contract can use as far as gas goes. So the way that VRF works, we have that coordinator. In your contract, you're going to need two functions. The first one is going to be a request for random words. Here, it's named request random words, but this could be anything, right? This could be your mint NFT function. You'll need some function that reaches out to the coordinator and runs this request random words from the coordinator. So that's you asking the Oracle network essentially, hi, I'd like a random number, please. We use the term random words because technically, from a computer science standpoint, it's a word that comes back, not a number. If you want to do like Wikipedia article on computer science words, it'll explain everything to you. I just, in my brain, like have an automatic substitution for random numbers when I see random words. So we go out to the Oracle network, we request our random word, and then it's off doing its thing, right? And so our contract's sitting here like, you know, nothing's happening. Until we get to this function, this fulfill random words function. This one does need to be named fulfill random words because that's what, when the coordinator gets a response back from the Oracle network, this is what it's going to look at your contract and try to call, is this function. And this is where whatever you want to happen with that random value needs to be happening. In this example, it's going to be just emitting an event and storing the random words. We have another function here to get the request status if we want to look at that. But in my mind, VRF kind of comes down to these two functions, right? The request random words and the fulfill random words. That's the meat of getting random numbers when it comes to VRF. So we'll go ahead and take a look at what this looks like when we deploy it. So you notice when we deploy here, we need a subscription ID. That's going to be something we pass into our constructor, and that'll come from our actual subscription that we created back a little bit ago. When we have a subscription like this, you need to let the contract know about the subscription, and you let the subscription know about the contract. So once this is deployed, then we'll add it as a consumer. And every subscription will get its own unique ID. So this is deployed. We'll go ahead and grab the address of our contract we just deployed, head back to our subscription, add a consumer, add it here, confirm, and wait for this to be confirmed. Any questions so far?
Not from my end.
Okay.
Looks like, yeah, everyone else following along well so far, so smoothly.
Cool.
Everything's smooth.
Okay, so our consumer has been added. When we look here, we can see events history, and then we'll see a little bit of a change once we actually make a request. So we'll request random words. They'll say, hey, we'd like a random number. One thing too to note is here in our setup, I mentioned the callback gas limit. We've got that set here. We can also set the number of confirmations. That's how many block confirmations we want as far as ensuring that the random numbers are random. The lower this number, the faster, but less secure. The higher this number, the slower, but more secure. And then we have number of words. Remember, words means numbers. So this is really number of numbers that we want back. So in each request, you can get more than one random number back, which is really cool too, because if you have like a bunch of different traits that you want to create on your NFT, for example, you can do that in one request. You don't have to make like a bunch of different requests. So that's pretty cool. So it looks like our transaction was mined. If we come back here to our subscription, you'll see here now that we have this pending area. This was new. This wasn't here a minute ago. We just had history. What this is that request that we just sent out, and we're waiting for a response back. Let's refresh, see if it comes back. Still pending. Again, we had 3 confirmations. This is going to take 3 times as long as a normal just submitting a transaction.
So does the 3 confirmations that have any impact on, like you talked about just being able to game the system in a way with the verifiable number being like on chain, like you don't want to wait too many blocks. Does that have any relationship here? So it's waiting for 3 blocks of
So this will be before it actually records it back on chain.
Oh, I see. Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah. So it doesn't get recorded on chain until that response back into your contract, right? So that call, that fulfill random words call back in your contract is when it would be first like actually hitting the blockchain.
Okay, cool.
We'll see. I don't know what's going on here. This seems very high. Sometimes things are wonky with test nets and like the costs. I may need to add more link to this.
Yeah. You did that on Girly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Girly has been interesting.
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a project for SmartCon that used VRF on Gorley, and during the course of the day, like I had a 10x increase in like transaction cost, which
That's
was
crazy.
Yeah, it was bananas.
Like with, I'd imagine with ETH Denver or like large events like that, it probably has like an impact too, like in the moment.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe Gorley's having oof.
Some issues.
Gorley got busy.
Yeah. Everyone's following along, just recreating this tutorial.
That's right. There's only a few people in the Discord or whatever, but you know, it's the millions of people watching on YouTube right now.
Exactly.
This stream is the new Mr. Beast. It's happening. Yeah, this was I mean, if we want to see this, I can switch to a different test network that like Fuji that will definitely be faster. Or we can just, you know, imagine that at some point our request so it's not fulfilled yet. So we can look at the request ID, see that it's not fulfilled. Okay, cool. So it probably fulfilled while I was in the middle of doing this. Okay, cool.
There we go.
Now it's fulfilled. And you can see here, there's a comma right here. So this is one of the random numbers, and this is the other random number. Questions that I normally see like pop up on Stack Overflow and stuff all the time. Is it possible to get the same random number? The answer to that is yes, it's possible. It's not likely, right? Like you can see the size of the number that's returned. So there's probably, you're never going to run into the same random number, but given the fact that it is truly a random number, it could happen. So just something to keep in mind. Like, you can't, if you depend on it being never the same number, then it probably will fail you. But it shouldn't ever be the same number. So yeah, so that's VRF. That's randomness on chain coming from an Oracle network. And I guess if anyone has any questions, feel free to just pop them in. We can talk about them in a little bit. And then like the imagination is running over 9,000. Yes, we had to use lots of imagination there. So that was VRF. The next thing to talk about is automation, previously called Keepers. If you've seen anything about Chainlink Keepers, it got rebranded as Chainlink Automation, probably because it makes a lot more sense, because what it's doing is it's automating smart contracts. Smart contracts, again, like immensely powerful, phenomenal cosmic powers. We have Genie, also phenomenally lazy in that they don't want to do anything on their own. And so we need something to get them to do their work, right? Like whether that's the office intern, like when he's not busy getting everybody coffees, clicking, like do the thing button, or you can use something like Chainlink Automation. So what is Chainlink Automation? Again, we have that distributed Oracle network. Those oracles can also be used to automate contracts. There's two ways to do that. There are time-based upkeeps, which is going to be similar to like a cron job, if you're familiar with that. That's what we'll take a look at here. And then there are function-based upkeeps, which will run a function called check upkeep that will return a Boolean value. And then depending on the result, if the Boolean is true, that means we need to perform upkeep, and then it will perform that action. So again, we'll pop into our documentation. This will talk about everything that you need to know about automation. There's time-based and custom logic. That's what I call the function-based logic. But instead of going through this, let's take a look at the world's most complex smart contract. I know, prepare to have your minds blown. Here it is. It counts stuff.
Pretty complicated.
I know, right? Like it's got like a uint in it and a function that increments the uint. Like super duper complex. But this is, the perfect thing for that intern that I mentioned to do is we can deploy this count contract. And then once it is submitted here and confirmed. Are we good on time? I'm not going over, am I?
No, you got about a little over 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Maybe. Depends on Corley is working for me here.
So slow.
So if you go to automation.chain.link, I'll do this while we're waiting for that. We'll need to register a new upkeep. This looks vaguely familiar to the subscriptions, right? It's the same similar idea. We'll do a time-based upkeep, and then we'll need the address of the contract that we're deploying, and it's there. Cool. So we have our contract, right? And we have two functions. We have a count, and how many times have we counted? It's 0 right now. We haven't counted anything. Let's count something. Cool. We'll confirm this, and we'll wait for it to come back. While we're waiting, we'll grab the address, and we'll go here, and we'll pop it in. And then it's going to say it couldn't fetch the ABI. That's because we haven't verified our contract on Etherscan. If you're familiar with that process, you need to basically submit your code once you've deployed the contract to Etherscan, so that then you can see what the actual code is behind what's deployed on Etherscan. If you don't want to do that, you can just grab the ABI, the application binary interface. It's kind of like an API, but for computers. To do that, if you go to the compile tab on Remix, there's a little tiny ABI button down here. You click and copy this. We just paste it in right here. Essentially what this is like a terrible way to view this. Can I make this bigger? Yes. Essentially what this is it's like a JSON object that shows what you can do with your contract. So you'll notice here it has inputs and outputs and functions. You'll notice we have the constructor function. We have a function called count. That's the one that we're going to use to increment that value. And Grammarly does not like Solidity. Once we've given it the ABI, we've told the automation page here, what our contract can do. We just have the one function that we can call. So we will pop that in here. We'll click next, and then we can schedule it. And again, this is based on cron. Like if you're a fan of like Unix systems, this is something that you may be familiar with. Essentially, it's 5 different values. It's going to be your minutes, hours, the day of the month. That's like the date, like the first, second, third, the month, and then the day of the week. You can get really weird really weird combinations of them if you're not careful. There's a website called crontab.guru, which you can paste a cron tab into, and it will like say it in plain English for you, which is nice. But for this one, we're going to do we'll just say 1 minute and hope that Gorley will do something close to that. So in the minutes column, we have every divided by 1. So every time this is like a whole number, essentially, every time it gets divisible by 1, we'll go ahead and run. The other ones are stars, which means every. So every minute of every hour of every day of every month, every day of the week. It kind of gives you the next schedule here too, so you can see that it's going to run every minute. We'll go ahead and deploy this. We'll just call this count. You can give it a gas limit if you'd like. You can give it some link to start with. If you want to provide your email address, you can. Like if you're doing this in production on like a mainnet, might be nice to do that, because if you start to run out of link and like your automation is going to stop running, it'll shoot you an email and say, hey, you need to come fund your automation. So we'll deploy the cron job contract itself, and then we'll actually request our upkeep in another transaction. So all this stuff with the Oracle Network is stored on chain as well, which I think is really cool. So at this point, I'm gonna hop back here while we wait, and we'll go ahead and look at counted. You can see, yes, Richard the intern clicked the button 1 time, and then he got really lazy and didn't want to click it anymore. So he went and made automation, because that's the smart way to do things. So now we have our upkeep here. We can see like the history that we had it funded, and every time it runs, we should see that in our history as well. Again, things are running slow on Gorley, so it may take a hot second to show up here. So while we wait on that, I think probably use cases for this kind of stuff. Everyone kind of, anytime you want things to happen automatically, when an event occurs or on a regular interval, you definitely could use automation to do that. I see one question here. When start financial plan? When floor price up? Okay.
We'll ignore that one.
So I guess when it comes to dynamic NFTs, that's something I personally am a huge fan of. And just to kind of shill your own documentation here from Tableland, this project is a great example. I think that you were probably heavily inspired by one of the talks that I gave. Just the documentation we had. So essentially, this project will walk you through taking an NFT that starts as a seed and grows into a flower from that seed based on Chainlink automation. So you can use automation to cause this to happen. Now, when you start thinking about larger, bigger projects, right, you could use the same idea. And like my initial concept for this that like got simplified down for demoing in talks like this was that you could have this seed and it would start to sprout, but only if it had been passed to a certain number of wallets within a certain number of time, like a certain amount of time. And if it wasn't passed around within like a day, then like the flower would actually die. Like there's like a dead state for the flowers too. And there's no coming back from that. So it was just kind of like an interesting, like a hot potato type thing. Like you have to keep passing it around, otherwise it'll die and it'll be sad. But I don't know, like dynamic NFTs and like the possibility there is super, super interesting, especially when you start to think about storing all that information easily with the all solution. That's like something that's like, man, the possibilities there are huge.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and we're just like, I feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface of that like true dynamic NFT, like what the possibilities with that. So yeah, hopefully Tableland with Chainlink can really power a lot of that too.
Yeah. It looks like Gorley is being super duper slow.
Dang.
Because yeah, it hasn't even called this once. Okay. I don't know if y'all want to see this. I kind of want to see it work. We're going to pop on over to the Fuji test network real quick. We're going to register a new upkeep over there. So I'm familiar with Fuji, but it's a different test network and it's pretty speedy. So we'll go ahead and grab, we deployed our contract, the same count contract, pop it in here, go back, grab the ABI. Say that yes, we want to call the count function every 1 minute. There we go. Register our upkeep here. And we can go back here, run the count function ourselves once, real quick. Maybe not fast enough. Okay, so we've got one from us running it. Oh no.
Oh no.
I missed my register. The two confirmations. I wasn't here for it. Okay, cool. So we ran it once ourselves, just to make sure things work. And this will run it automatically for us. So you can see here we funded our upkeep. And soon, sometime in the next minute, it should run for us automatically. But yeah, I don't know what questions anyone has. If you have any questions for me.
Looks like no major questions from the chat. Just because I'm a little bit, I've played with the tooling quite a bit, so I don't have any questions in particular, but hopefully we can get this last just like bit to work. Otherwise it's been awesome. Just there we go.
So here we can see like the perform upkeep actually ran. It shows you what it cost, how much you have left in your bucket of link. If we look at counted now, huzzah, it's changed to 2, right? And if you go through this demo, instead of just seeing a number change from 1 to 2, you'll actually see a picture change on OpenSea, which is like way cooler. Unless you're just a numbers person. In that case, numbers might be a thing. And you're like, yeah, that's right, number go up.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool.
Awesome. So yeah, in terms of, I shared at least within our Discord, shared your Twitter in case anyone has any questions about this in particular, just, wants to talk more about Chainlink. And then as we have builders throughout the program start to experiment, I'll try to handle all sorts of questions and whatnot, but it might loop you in just to help with their use cases and things like that. But
yeah, absolutely.
Other than that, really appreciate the time. And I think, you walk through so much and there's a lot going on with Chainlink, obviously. So again, just really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. It's fun. I wish the best of luck to everybody building stuff because that's the fun stuff, man. It's making cool projects. Like if you make something, feel free to tag me on Twitter. I will say my Twitter looks like it's completely inactive. I have a timeline feature implemented that deletes my tweets after like a day or two. So they're like kind of ephemeral tweets. So just, I am there. That is me. But yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, yeah, just wrapping things up. So from here, anyone else that is on the Mesa or watching the stream live, appreciate all the time that you spent just getting to know the different protocols that you could build with, as well as just meeting everyone that's been part of planning to be part of the program or will be from here on out. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in.